to say this once. I'm going to say it simple. And I hope to God, for your sakes, you all listen. There are no abominable snowmen. There are no Sasquatches. There are no big feet.
Hi, Cindy. Let's hear your story about Bigfoot.
I grew up in Alaska. I was about 12 years old. My dad was a bush pilot. We would go across the inlet to go fishing, silver fishing. So we went back there. I wanted to get to a good fishing hole, so I walked by myself away from my dad down the creek to a good fishing hole. And on my way there, I started smelling a horrible smell, what I thought was carcass from another animal, from maybe a bear eating it and just leaving it, maybe a moose or something. And so I didn't think nothing much of it. I just kept going. Kept my ears and eyes open for any type of bear or other creature out there that could eat me. Starting to make a little bit of noise so that, that I could scare them away. And get to my fishing hole, and I squat down, and I start doing my line, putting my line together on my pole, and I see something. I notice something about 75 to 100 yards from me, and I look over, and I see what looks like a bear hunched into the water doing some fishing, trying to get some fish out of the water and doing something. And so I start making some noise, trying to, scare him before he scares me. And this so-called bear stood up about 10, 12 feet tall, and it wasn't a bear. It was a Bigfoot. And I was scared to death. He lunged over, just took about one step and lunged about 10 feet into the tundra, and he was gone. But the smell is something that you would never, ever, ever forget. I will never forget that smell. And I ran back to my dad, trying to tell him what was going on. He was pretty much calling me loco, telling me that I didn't know what I was talking about. I was sitting in the plane for about an hour until he was done fishing, and I never went across the inlet again. I never, ever went back there, and I was about 12 years old. So
the thing you saw was like 10 to 12 feet?
It was massive, and it was
And you're sure it wasn't a bear?
I am so positive it wasn't a bear. I grew up with bears. I know what bears look like. I grew up on the river, so I know what bears look like. I've dealt with bears. I've face to face, so it's never been a question in my mind that it was a bear.
So you saw it from behind. Did you see the front, like its face?
Oh, no. He looked at me. He stood up and looked at me. I startled him. He stood up and looked at me, and he lunged. He stood up on on his 2 feet, and he lunged forward, walking on just 2 feet. He wasn't on all fours.
So he wasn't lumbering like a bear would on 2 feet. He walked towards you.
No, he didn't walk towards me. He stood up and looked at me because I startled him. And he stood up and looked at me, and then he turned and to his right, and he lunged into the tundra, into the thick woods that was there.
This story is the first story that I would say is I'm questioning. That's a good one.
I will tell you, the smell is something that you'll never forget. And if anybody has ever come close contact with a Sasquatch, with a Bigfoot, the smell is something that you would never forget. And if they don't say anything about the smell, it can't be true. I mean, that's I have heard stories and read stories, and nobody has ever mentioned anything about a smell. If you think about it, that smell, because they live out in the woods, they don't bathe. They have this long hair.
Right.
They never
get a shower.
Exactly. It's absolutely horrible, that smell.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 12. I was about 12 or 13. I was no older than 13.
Right. So, but I mean, you weren't like 4 years old trying to tell your dad this story. All right. Well, thank you, Cindy.
It scared the crap out of me enough to where I never went fishing.
You're telling me the story, and it's scaring the crap out of me.
Yeah. I don't tell many people because they call BS on me, but I figured, why not? I was just talking to my husband, and he's like, why don't you call her and tell that story? And I thought, all right.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.